Pennsylvania did recently bail out SEPTA. So on January 1st, there will not be massive fare hikes or massive service cuts. We will see how long the state, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is going to support. But they finally realized that their transit system is the economic engine of the region, much as ours is. And it was great that they came to their senses and will not let Philadelphia go through what other cities in the country are going through and what we would have gone through if our governor and our legislature hadn't
You
done
can
it.
make.
That's very good news. Okay,
Okay, so I think you have the agenda. in front
I
of you.
do have the agenda.
I think the first thing we need to do is
We have to approve the agenda.
approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So.
Roberta, and the budget priorities is the number one item. Is she
We
online?
did not vote on the agenda yet. We just seconded it. So we all.
Oh,
Okay.
all in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Great. Can Roberta hear us?
I'm here.
Great.
So hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me come in remote. So we completed the DNS this year, and we're looking for the 2027 budget requests and also for the DNS. And one of the things that we'd like to do tonight is for you to kind of figure out how during the first part of 2025, you're going to get information that will go into the DNS and information that will go into your budget priorities. Often you have major that you want everything on Amsterdam Avenue to be fixed. What we'd like to put in, if possible, some intersections that are worse than others, where there maybe have been more accidents or more problems. There are several organizations in the community that are, especially some senior groups, that are concerned about traffic flow, especially the e-bikes and cars not observing regulations. So that might be something you might meet with them. There's a group at the JCC, and I believe there's another one at another senior center. The other thing is it'd be nice to have photos. So if we're talking about curb cuts, we can have a photo of a curb cut so people know what it looks like. If we're asking for bollards, it'd be nice to have a picture of a bollard in the district. So you may want to appoint certain members of the committee to do outreach on some of these issues and be in charge of taking photos. For example, years ago when there were several deaths on 96th Street near Broadway, a group of us from the Transportation Committee stood with people from DOT and the police at 96th Street. And I believe our city council member was there, and we watched people crossing the street against whatever the traffic regulations were, at which point DOT agreed to change so that you can now cross from the 96th Street head house directly across the street. People were doing it anyway, illegally. So now there are lights and it's protected. So these are things the committee has done in the past that have been very effective. And it would be nice to be able to put this into the, for future types of items like this.
You see these as budget items as opposed to regular transportation committee items?
Well, some of them are budget items. For example, if you need to put new crosswalks in, that's a budget item. For the DNS, if you know that, in this year's DNS, we put in that traffic flow is a real problem for pedestrians. So we want to write things into the district needs as we see things happening. Fifth Avenue is going to have a major change. That might be something that if you guys consider, we could then look at, if you're considering something that's happened in another area, we can always take some photos of that and put that into, that would go into the district needs part, into the what we talk about. Whereas a budget item is more like you need curb cuts on certain streets, or you need whatever the specifics are. We will get in February. So we submitted this in the end of October. In February, ideally, we get back from the agencies, from city planning, what the agencies have said they will do or not do. And last year, most of the items that were in the budget requests, we got back, talked to the borough commissioner. So I don't know if you've spoken with the borough commissioner. The budget committee sent you that information, I believe, by March. So I don't know if you discuss those items with the borough commissioner, but it helps us to know. We're also trying to keep in our database when something has, we've had some items in the budget request for a couple of years, and then finally they're completed. So it's nice to know that, or they've been funded, and then we like to track to see when they're completed.
Roberta, at what months do you need us to have all of our requests in?
Timeline-wise.
Yeah,
Well, ideally, we'd like as much as possible by June, or at least for the district, for the narrative. We'd like as much of the narrative as possible by June.
Yeah.
And we'd like as much of your budget requests by June. If there are one or two that come up where it's easier to add them, we can always add an item, but it's hard. It's really hard to have to write everything in October when there are all kinds of other deadlines.
So you're asking all committees to have the information to you by June?
By the end of June, so we can work on. So our committee can work over the summer. Right. I know you guys don't usually meet, but we start working on the narrative, and our goal has been, we've never achieved our goal. Our goal was that we would get the information back to the committees by September, and they could go over it and make any modifications. Instead, at the very last minute, the budget committee does a quick read, and then we press send before the committees can really look at it.
Yes.
And if you're happy, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, Roberta, I was just going to say, we have a couple of newer members to the committee. And I think you're aware that we don't meet in July and August. So
right.
That's one reason why Roberta is coming to us tonight. And the other is, this is traditionally something that we think about, but we sort of don't get to work on until towards the end. So we're trying to stay on top of it. And I don't know if the newer members have any specific questions about the process, but I think we want to make sure that we
used to have only August off, but now we have July and August off. Yeah. Carey.
Well, and just to flag, while Roberta is very correctly pointing out that she's talking about budget requests that are going to be for fiscal year 2027, the budget process is always ongoing. And so we had already submitted our request for FY26 in connection with our DNF that had already gone in prior months. And at the middle of January, rather, we're going to hear back from city agencies about those requests, and we're going
Carey, we'll hear in February.
Sorry, well, right, and then we'll have 30 days to respond with our additional comments. So even though the deadlines for that fiscal year are going to be for us internally over the summer, it's always an ongoing process. And so we're going to have things that are coming up in fairly short order where we're going to want to have our ducks in a row. And if there are things that we care about or think need to get done, we're going to want to have photos of affected sites. We're going to want to have things that we want to flag for the department coming up in the next few months as well. So
unless we're in a duck-free zone.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So it sounds like Carey might be something you might want to help keep us on top of going forward. Would that be something we could ask of you?
Sure.
to help us take the lead on? Roberta, anything else? We have a really busy agenda tonight, but we want to make
sure. No, I know. So I recommend that the DNS is on the website. I think you go to the Budget and Strategy Committee and it's there. So I would recommend reading the whole thing, but I think, if all the committee members could at least read the parts, it's very easy to find the parts that have to do with transportation. Take a look at those, then go into the capital budget priorities, and then the expense budget priorities, and look at those. And then at some point we will send you from our database what the history has been of, you know, some things that have completed.
Right.
I wish we could say that all of this work has given us great results, but we ask and we don't get often, so. But we have to keep asking, obviously.
And I will say that DOT is as responsive as is more responsive than some of the other agencies. But don't tell the other agencies I said that.
Sorry,
You know, that's pretty true. We've gotten some of the things we've asked for sure.
Thank praise.
Thanks, Roberta.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Roberta.
Thanks.
All right.
I just want to add one thing for the new members. The district needs statement is about one of the most important things that we do as a community board. It's the really way we sort of speak about what our priorities are. And, you know, it's, when people say, what do you do at a community board? That's one of the most important components.
And one other thing to add, we don't need you to write the narrative. What we need from you are bullet points. And so you don't have to write a 3-page essay for us. Just give us the bullet parts. Give us some data. We like data. So if there's a street corner, and even if the police don't have reports, but you know from residents in the buildings around it that there have been many near accidents at that corner, we can put that in. We can put that information into the narrative. So we can say, you know, building X, Y, and Z have reported that this is a very dangerous corner because often their residents have problems crossing the street. So keep that in mind. Data helps, but also, you know, word of mouth that's realistic helps.
Great. Thank you, Roberta.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Roberta. All right. So
Thank you.
on to the next item, Greenmarket.
Yes, the 97th Street Greenmarket, which we do each year around this time. Is anybody here from the Greenmarket? Does not appear.
Anyone, Jessie, is there anyone from the attendees who might be with the Greenmarket?
There's no one on.
Ah.
She was invited.
Okay, well, this is the same as it's been for many years. It's every Friday. It's on 97th Street between Columbus and Amsterdam. It's well attended. There's some great booths there. Every year it seems to be all kinds of new ones, and they've always followed all the rules that we asked them to follow. So I would certainly recommend an approval of the 97th Street Greenmarket for 2025.
All in favor?
Great. Can we see a show of hands? Is that 9?
10, I think.
We have any members online?
Don't count me.
Maybe 11.
We didn't know, that's 10. Oh, any opposed to the Greenmarket renewal?
So that was 10.
Any abstaining? One abstention.
10 to 0 to 1, no one for
Just a
Coughlin.
comment, if we invited the representative to be here and they don't show up either remotely or in person, I think it's kind of an affront to our.
They've always been super terrific, so I'm sure something must have happened. They never miss a meeting, and perhaps somebody got ill or they're, yeah, who knows? But thank
We
you.
like the Greenmarket.
Yeah, we
so
do.
No vegetables for you.
Excellent. Yeah, okay, so our next item, now, is, a discussion, a follow-up from last month, which was really only 2 weeks ago. I think 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago.
Different month, though.
And we sort of had this consensus where there are a lot of issues going on in this sort of 70th to 72nd Street corridor. As you may remember, there were some very specific needs that we felt could be addressed in the short term immediately, related to the McDonald's area and the 71st Street, specific to a bike corral. So that was moved to be an agenda item for tonight, where we're ideally, if everyone agrees, going to construct a resolution based on what Mr. Papa, who's here tonight, and others are going to show a couple of slides just to refresh your memory about that specific item. We want to keep our conversation.
Location.
Yeah, and we want to sort of consolidate the discussion tonight on that particular item. In the first part of the first quarter next year, we're obviously going to be addressing some of the other ideas that came to us. But tonight we thought this could be something we could act on quickly to the sort of satisfaction of some of our members of the community who really want to get this passed. So, Eric, do you have anything you want to say about that, or do you want to share your screen so that we
Sure,
can?
I'll throw it up there, and
Yeah.
hopefully I don't mess this up because.
Could we have him come closer?
Yeah,
to
maybe
the
if we-
owl?
Sure.
if you could.
Yeah, we need you to come closer so your voice can be
I'm
heard.
putting my image up on the screen and then I'll come closer.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Jessie, for all your help tonight with all this screen sharing
Thank
and,
you, Jessie.
and Alex for doing what you were gonna do on cam with the technology.
Yeah, that's still dark.
Yeah, it's
Unreal.
okay. We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Well, thank you, everyone. Hello, Owl. This is my first time meeting the owl.
Nobody hears everything.
But,
Yes, you're right.
you know, just these images, I think, kind of really speak to, one of the major things going on
Eric,
in
Can
that
you
area.
say, just for the few people who might be
Yes.
at home, who you are? and why-
Yes, sorry.
why
Thank
you're
you
here?
so much. Yeah, I'm a resident on 71st Street. I am a location scout manager for film and TV by profession. I've lived on the Upper West Side for 5 years. I'm a dad to 2 young girls. I walk this plaza between West 71st and West 70th, which I refer to as Sherman Square Plaza. I think that's, I don't know if that's the proper name for it or not, but maybe it will become that as we sort of do these positive things to improve the area. Secondly, I really appreciate the help that you guys are all providing, and I kind of made this as a mission of a personal mission of my own, working with the West 71st Block Association, who's been really supportive and helpful as we just continue to keep our foot on the gas of trying to bring some immediate change to this kind of forgotten section. I think it's a bit overwhelming for people, and what I'm sort of suggesting are immediate things that will have an immediate impact. One of those things that happened already is a police presence near McDonald's, where there's been 4 shootings in the past 4 years on the same corner. So if you need data, that's pretty convincing data to me.
And the recent thing that in the McDonald's in Altoona.
Yeah, exactly, exactly,
You
yes.
never know who you're
So
gonna-
as you can see, it's a magnet for trouble. But, you know, actually McDonald's is actually one of the more responsible tenants on that block, from my observations. They clean their sidewalks, they take care of their garbage, they do all the things they're supposed to do. Focusing specifically on the bikes, you can see from this image, it has become just permanent parking for delivery guys. Those are bike racks underneath there. You can't see them. You never have access to them. So though, yeah, exactly. It's like you link up to another bike. These bikes do not move. They move when a delivery guy who shares the bike with 3 other delivery guys shows up for his shift with a battery and then uses the bike. So as though we're sort of thinking about removing these things would be the first thing to do. The second thing to do or to consider would be installing another bike corral in the curb lane for these delivery guys who are a part of the community. They need a place to lock their bikes. But really, it's going to just move that problem that you're looking at right now into what is now a commercial parking spot along the curb. So the real question is, do you actually put a bike corral or do you not put a bike corral? Right? Because you're just sort of, it's not for the public, as you can see. I will never have a chance to lock my bike up there if I want to walk into CBD Creighton, or Pinkberry for that matter, or McDonald's. So Eric, yes,
Since I know someone's gonna ask,
please.
are the folks whose bikes these are in an establishment having lunch or having breakfast? Or
No,
they're just storing their
no,
bikes
they,
there?
if anything, they're waiting at McDonald's for their Grubhub thing to go off to get the delivery. They sometimes wait out front. I don't want to go towards it, but they sit in the non-permitted pizza cafe seating that's right there as well, which will be part 2 of my thing next month or next year. But so for this particular and focusing on this bike corral, I do think removing those bike racks would immediately remove these things, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. With the trees there now, like even without the trees, 2 people can barely pass through that because there's a bike permanently locked up there. Anywhere else, you can see, like, you can't pass through freely. It creates bottlenecks throughout this plaza, both in the south end on 70th corner and as well as the 71st Street corner.
Do you think it's because of the way this bike, this group of bikes is situated? Or because there's too many, or because it should be longer?
I think all of the
Thinner.
above. I think all of the above. I think like if we were doing a friendly service to the delivery guys, which they're gonna be there one way or the other, you know, like whether their bike is locked up there or they're gonna find another place. And most people on 71st Street will speak to their tree beds. They have bikes locked up there because they just leave the bikes. The bikes do not go home. They just stay there, right? So they come with the battery because they don't own a $3,000 electric bike. They own the battery for that
Who
$3,000.
owns the bike?
Good
The
question.
company, yeah.
Probably someone who's selling them, leasing those bikes to a group of guys. Kind of works similarly like probably to a taxi medallion. You get a group of guys, hey, you guys want to go in on a bike? I'll take the morning shift, I'll take the afternoon, I'll take the late shift. They're all,
But it's delivery guys who
absolutely,
or not that own the bike.
that's correct.
It's not the delivery.
It's not Grubhub.
Well, it's not any of the commercial establishments that are using them.
No, in fact, McDonald's representatives would have the same complaints about this. It's an eyesore. It sort of, you guys sit and wait for it.
Do you have either a photo of a bike corral someplace
I
else?
do, in
or
fact,
rendering of
yeah.
what
Let
it
me,
look like?
yeah, someone in DOT or somebody, I think, already installed one just south of this. Give me 1 second, I'll throw it up.
Hey, it's Colleen from DOT. So we just recently installed a bike corral at Amsterdam in 70th in the southwest corner, just so you know.
You know, hopefully.
Thanks, Colleen. I think Eric showed it to me earlier.
Colleen, while we have you, can you talk, is it being used? Like, how is it functioning now?
Well, we just installed it, I think 2 days ago. So we're going to monitor it and take a look at it and you know, we're going to look at the usage of it. So we'll keep you posted.
Do you have any thoughts on what Mr. Papa has said so far, or thoughts or ideas from the DOT perspective?
This is the new bike corral.
Oh, clean, yeah.
Okay. Right.
So it's essentially a row of racks.
Right, just south of it.
Just
That's
so-
correct.
Yeah.
Oh,
By H
By
Mart,
H
well,
Mart.
yeah.
that's right. And they may use it, you know, especially when the existing racks are gone, they're going to be looking for a place to park their bikes. There's nowhere else to lock a bike up in that plaza as the One Sherman Square, the building that stands above those commercial buildings between 70th and 71st. They've spent thousands of dollars welding iron to their open tree guards so that you cannot lock anything up to it. So once those racks are gone, these guys are going to be looking for another place to lock their bike. So it's great that there's something there provided that's south of it, because they're obviously want to be as close. It's like a slot machine. Whoever gets the first, mark for a delivery from McDonald's goes there. So they want to be there. I'm not trying to, I'm a firm believer that these guys and these delivery guys are as much a part of the community as anything else. They deliver food to my house. I'm sure they deliver to everyone else's house. I'm not trying to put them out. What I'm trying to do is put them in a place that doesn't affect everything else around it.
So where would your proposed?
My proposal would be similar to,
Ask a question?
You will be next, Ken.
I'm happy to take any question.
We'll let the co-chairs
Yeah,
run it.
We're
Can
gonna
you
go
just
around the
answer-
table in a second. These
Can you
are,
answer Jay's question?
Sorry, yeah, I didn't hear, you. Sorry.
No,
Where would I put it?
where is it gonna be?
Where would I put it? I would put it similar to what you're looking at. I would take a couple parking spots, if not all of the parking spots in front of these commercial businesses. There's maybe 6 total. I don't ever really see trucks there because there's cars permanently parked there. I don't know what they do. I haven't observed the people getting in and out of them. I would take that parking, use it like this, have it with a buffered zone for the bike lane that already passes by there. And put in a rack or two, just like this. See, again, once you put them up, they're gonna be gone. The public will not be able to use these racks. They will be buried just like they are, but they'll be buried in a place that's not affecting anything else. It's taking a couple parking spaces. I own a car, but so be it. You know what I mean? It's in my opinion, I
Thanks.
can't park there.
so, yeah,
Yeah, I definitely support that. It sounded like you were initially ambivalent about using what you called commercial space or, but this is commercial also. These
Yeah.
Guys are as much commercial as any, delivery.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, you know, I think it's actually a better use. It's more vehicles.
I agree to your point. Thank you for bringing that up. I didn't think of it that way, but you're right. These are commercial vehicles in themselves. They just happen to have 2 wheels as opposed to 4. Yeah.
Can you estimate how many can fit into the new space?
The way they park them on the old racks or the way that they're meant to be, you know, those racks are meant to be a bike on each side, but these guys will just park as many as you can fit in there.
Sure.
I think that there are, you know, I think anything would be better than what we currently use. I do think that there's probably some other design that might sort of allow for more bikes to be like parked there. But I would estimate that this is a good start. I would maybe throw in, there's looks like 2 separate racks here. I'd probably throw in a third. You know, it's like, but I wouldn't take up that entire parking space with bike racks because I would, for future discussions, I would allow room for other things to go there, like a vendor or a fruit stand, and move everything off the pedestrian plaza sidewalks.
Got it.
Right.
So since we have Colleen on the line, I just wanted to ask you if, Colleen, if you're there, if there are any other considerations related to what we're talking about relative to the ones that have been installed already versus doing something similar at the corner of 71st?
So we are looking at installing other corrals in the area, but we expedited this one because we know how important it was to get something on the ground. So we can definitely explore the locations that the gentleman is just presenting to. But we are looking at other spots, just so you know.
A question for you is I guess the only way to see if these racks and the positions that they're in are going to be effective is if the existing racks in the plaza are removed. So is that something that?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know yet if we're going to remove those bike racks from the plaza. I'd have to confirm that. I have to have a discussion with Borough Commissioner Pinkar to determine if that's something that we would want to do. Maybe, you know, lessen the number of racks in the plaza area. Well, it's not technically a plaza, but lessen the number of racks on the sidewalk.
Yeah, because what will happen is if those racks exist, what you'll do is with these ones that you just put in, you'll just attract other bikes that are parked elsewhere, and then you'll compound the problem.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I think that really, if you want to see how effective these new racks will be, which I'm very thankful, it was a wonderful surprise on the walk to school this morning.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like they're not at the epicenter where these guys want to be. They're not delivering from Ehrlich's Wines and Spirits or H Mart. So maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you know, this was the location, I think, that Parks and the Deliveries to Hub folks came to ask if they could, you know, create a hub there for the deliveristas. And I think, you know, there was a lot of back and forth and the community decided not to move forward with it, not to approve it.
I was a block north or 2 blocks north.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
Okay.
we're gonna go around the table, Colleen, for a couple of people who have questions or want to comment. Doug and then Andrew.
Yeah, well, just the question on those existing racks, I know, Colleen, we spoke about this and I guess we're trying to figure it out together, is where on the property line is that? Can those racks be removed from DOT? Are they DOT racks? Is it New York City property or is it the landlord's property? So I don't know, we've determined that yet. And the second part of my question is, on the new racks that look great near H Mart, I assume that there's a safety reason, but can they be doubled up? Or does that create an obstruction in case of an emergency vehicle actually has to get by or a garbage truck?
We wouldn't double it up because we have to keep sight lines. You're absolutely right with that, with garbage trucks and emergency response vehicles. And I think, Doug, when we were at the site, we talked about the property line of the building and how it's set back. And I think Councilmember Brewer mentioned that that's something, you know, the community board can reach out to the borough president's topographical office to see where the property line of the building ends from the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
You're committed to that, and I think that'll also inform us about the cafe, where it is, if the cafe is private or public property, and so we have some work to do. Thank you.
Andrew?
So I would be happy to admit ultimately that I'm wrong, but my sense is that as long as the bike racks are in the plaza, those bike racks are gonna go relatively unused. And the only way to get people to move is to remove the bike rack in the plaza. And if you're saying they aren't individually owned bikes, then they're there 24/7, which means you have to clip the locks and you have to deal with it. And I know the city has different issues when they're removing, property. So I think that kind of complicates it. And I think the other part is just like human nature and commercial nature. The reason I think that area is a popular place is because, there's chairs out, it's a social gathering place. And if we go back to all the debates about the Deliverista hub, part of what was being proposed was a place where people can go charge their batteries, get information, which is a more formal use than what's kind of informally happening, in the plaza. So I personally don't think this is gonna do anything, adding the new one, unless you remove the old one. And I don't think where the other one is located provides the same type of infrastructure that makes the other area like a congregating place. So it may solve it in the sense that they just say, okay, we gotta find another place to go congregate, or it just creates an issue where people are hanging out on the sidewalk in front of the wine shop and H Mart and basically in the street.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Quite possible.
Yeah, it's Colleen again. It's important to note that this is not a plaza. The other thing is that, does the community know which business is using these delivery, employees? Is it the pizza? Is it the pizza store? Is it who's using
Not
these?
exclusive. They're not exclusive to any of those businesses.
They just park up there.
They're
They
waiting.
go
I mean,
everywhere, yeah, they're the bikes by the third party delivery, so
Okay.
they could be crisscrossing, the city.
What the pattern I have noticed about it is that it's driven by McDonald's, right? That is the only McDonald's.
Yes.
For, I'd go as far as to say is miles, it's like, that's the only McDonald's. It gets a lot of hits for deliveries. These guys are waiting there, and it's like, my observations is that the group that hangs out there is specifically like, no, McDonald's is a good place to start. Why not be right here?
Yeah.
And I do agree with you. I don't think installing a new bike rack is the solution. It has to be a two-pronged removal. If there is no bike rack there for them to lock up, they may migrate south to 70th Street and use those. In fact, I can almost guarantee it. They're gonna look for some place to lock their bike to. And to address your other issue, yes, getting rid of public property. In my experience, though, there are things where they do put notice, right? Just like you do parking your car. Con Ed is coming, move your car, I'm towing it down the end of the street. Happened to me 2 weeks ago, happens in 15 minutes. We could give them a week's notice, it's like, it's possible.
Yeah.
So anytime someone says like, well, my car gets moved all the time and I don't like it, but it gets moved. So.
Yeah.
Put a sign like they do when they're making a movie.
Yeah.
1000%.
Tuesday,
That's
all
right.
have to be removed.
And thank you for making that reference, because that is exactly what I'm supposed to do, right? So these problems seem very minor to me.
Them all the time.
Yeah, if Steven Spielberg says, hey, I don't like these bike racks in the back, the city's gonna say, Steven Spielberg doesn't like these bike racks in the back. They're gonna move.
Ken, I think,
Check it out in
Yeah,
post-production.
maybe so.
Production, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't really agree that if, we put let's say we had a bike rack right there, that it wouldn't necessarily at least help address the problem. I don't think we want to look at 70th Street as the solution. This is, a place where these guys like to be. It's a big space. So it's attractive to them. And I
that's
think
right.
we should try to accommodate that. But I also question, how do you know that these bikes are, nobody owns them? My understanding is that some of them are actually owned.
I asked
by the
them,
riders.
I spoke to them. I spoke to, and not to every single driver, but I've gone up and said, tell me about your bike, you know, like, I'm curious. And they would say, no, I just have the battery. So going back to what you had mentioned about the bike hub and everything, like a charging station will, I can honestly tell you, will be a pure waste of money. They do not need a place to charge their batteries because they're coming with their batteries that's already charged. What they need is a place to use a bathroom.
Yeah.
I say that because they've been urinating on my building for the past 4 years because I had a sidewalk shed across the street. Not just them, other people, but like I said, so just as a side thing, on my walk up here after bringing my daughter to piano, we passed 1991 Broadway, which is a public space.
Yeah.
And everyone sitting in there because it's raining
Yes.
was a delivery guy. Their
Yeah.
bikes were parked out front, lined up without a bike rack.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is, this is an idea that I
Yeah.
want to bring to a future meeting about the use of that building.
Exactly.
That has sat idle for years.
That's right.
And those in the real estate probably know why that's been the case, not for tonight's discussion, but
That's right.
a very
Yeah.
good point. Howard,
It's just a procedural question. So the new bike racks have been up 2 days. I think we should just maybe wait and see what happens. I was just curious if there are other proposals that you have that you want us to act on tonight. That's.
this is not, I think tonight was
Tonight's just-
specific.
Yeah, this is,
to-
and what,
Oh,
and I-
it's specific to this.
yeah,
one.
and what I would
bike
say is
rack.
like, what my proposal is, if I could almost rephrase it, is remove the bike racks.
No,
Start there, no, I agree with you,
Never.
put something else in, but remove them from what is causing another problem. In the middle of, maybe it's not a plaza area, it's a sidewalk. But where they are right now, it is causing issues, a domino effect of issues, that's people, traffic,
right.
things of that
I hear
nature.
you, But I
Yeah.
don't think we should just remove them without putting something else.
Well, could you
on the
move
curb
them?
side that
Yeah,
would take the place.
that's in my,
Could you just move it to the curb?
yeah, that would be
Yeah,
You
another.
know, like you have
That's
the
what
news, you have the
Yeah.
newsstand there, so
That's
they're
right.
just doing, at least then it's out of.
Some
Yeah.
people have suggested that, Andrew.
Not,
Yeah.
not the
So I
curb,
think-
an actual parking space.
Yeah, curb, whatever it is.
Either or, yeah, either or, it's a good idea, I agree.
I think that's what we want to think about as we go towards resolution.
I
Yes,
would, I would say, instead of a bike charging station, put in a bathroom, even if it's a porta set.
Yeah.
Because to me, I'm not riding around all day, but I see them at McDonald's and their bathrooms are always open.
So just so you know, a law was passed by the city a couple of years ago
Doesn't matter.
that requires restaurants to
let them-
allow the delivery workers to use the restroom.
Yeah.
So
After
in,
COVID.
so in theory, again, in theory, you know, they don't need to be
Yeah.
peeing on your building, or they should always have a warm place to go in. And
is that the
and-
third party app or is it McDonald's?
No, that is, so if a restaurant is accepting, if a restaurant is, if a delivery worker goes to a restaurant to pick up an order, they're able to use the
So
restaurant.
even if it's Uber Eats order at McDonald's, it's
Yeah,
McDonald's that has to.
Correct,
provide
yes.
Okay.
The restaurant, if
origin of the
they're,
food,
exactly.
yeah.
The
Law was
restaurant
changed.
is-
Yeah, if they're using it, they have.
So you have to look like a delivery person?
No,
No, if you're actually a bona fide delivery person and what was happening during COVID is that we had so much restriction.
Yeah.
Restaurants were not allowing the delivery persons to enter, and obviously there's a lot of logistical, when
Yeah.
restaurants can only occupy 50%, but yeah, no, we supported that and it was passed into law.
yeah, so any delivery worker should be able to go in and use the restroom.
Are we gonna vote on this? Or is
I
that
think we're
just
just
discussion?
gonna continue discussion, a couple more questions, then we'll walk around whether or not we want to do a resolution. I think we're headed in a
That was my
direction, but
question.
Jamie, yeah.
Well, my question was, I just wanted to clarify, so Eric Papa, you're asking the committee for a resolution to remove these bike racks and either move them to the curb,
Correct.
or perhaps the committee would come up with some other solution, but you'd like to see them moved from the sidewalk.
That's correct. I think a more efficient location for everybody would be what the answer is, whether it's taking up parking spaces, like as he suggested for a commercial vehicle as the bikes, or moving them, just relocating them to a curbs, like along the curb line on the sidewalk where they're not impeding on traffic walking through that plaza area.
Okay, thank you.
Oh,
So
and then they're gonna-
do we, so we know, the parking that's in front of Sherman is commercial vehicle
Correct.
parking only?
Correct.
I don't know.
Metered commercial vehicle.
Right. Is there any, do we know any of the other restrictions of, when there's no standing, no parking, or And it's, you said it's metered commercial parking, right?
It is metered
Community
commercial
meter for
parking,
commercial.
yes.
I don't know if Colleen is still on, if she can,
I could find out for you.
I'm
pretty
sure we
easily,
could.
Yeah, I guess we
Pull it
just
up.
want to make sure that that is an area that we're able to move the crowds
Yep, right.
onto the avenue. Colleen, do you have any comment on that?
You know what? I don't have that information. I would have to find out in the morning. I can confirm in the morning. It's most likely, it might be commercial meter parking, most likely.
I think the resolution, I mean,
Yeah,
it's
go.
basically calling to remove the Carrolls at the corner of 71st and Amsterdam. Carrolls, sorry, Carol, I don't know, book Carrolls.
Christmas time. Can't remove the carols.
Sorry, and place on, either on the curb or an alternative that is determined by DOT is a more efficient way of locating them or relocating them,
Is at the curb or the or
yeah,
Or, yes.
commercial.
okay.
To answer your question, it is commercial vehicles only, 7 AM to 7 PM. 2-hour metered parking, 7 AM to 7 PM, commercial vehicles only.
And
Okay.
after 7 PM, any vehicle.
That's correct.
We have street cleaners, or I just wonder what's happening overnight there, but.
I mean, this is.
I don't know.
If
Okay,
you want
so-
my take on it, I don't think I've ever seen a street cleaner pass by.
Okay, so I think we're ready to vote on this resolution as it stands right now. Is everyone comfortable with?
You need to read the resolution.
Okay, so we'll do the whereases based on this discussion. We'll write them up, but the resolution would be CB7 calls on DOT to remove the bike corrals,
To remove, well, by.
to remove them and place them on the curb or on a sufficient alternative that provides for a more efficient
Such
location,
as parking
such
spots,
as
but, yeah.
the parking spots in that area.
I would say bike racks, not corrals, because they're two different things. So,
Okay.
okay.
How many bikes are we talking about?
I think there's a total, guessing, again, they're buried. I think that there's maybe a total of 8.
I think do we want to make sure that they're being replaced with an equal number that will be on, so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Equal or greater.
Yeah.
Equal or greater.
Yeah, either.
okay, equal or greater number, okay. So that's
Mhm.
the
In a more
resolution.
appropriate place, such as, and we'll list the things we just listed.
Okay, so that's the resolution.
Assuming that DOT has the authority to do it, I think that's what we're asking for. If they don't, do we want to add something in there that, asking ownership of the property to remove it? Because.
Sure, and in fact, that's one thing I wanted to bring up tonight. I did have discussion with the Lincoln Square bid, who I think
Sure,
you've been in contact
yes.
with as well. They have mentioned that the owners of the property, the 1 Sherman Square, I
Yes.
guess, the high rise, have not committed money in the way that they should for some of the things related to the cleanliness and the upkeep of that stretch of block. And so I do think that that is an entity we need to be engaging.
Is that with, sorry, is that?
And
is
if
that
they're not
building
covered by
inside
a
of the
bid, it is not as the bids, so
Bid
everyone,
ends at
yeah,
70th
so everyone's aware, the bid does not go to the west side
Right.
of Amsterdam. It goes up in the 60s on the east side up into 70th Street.
It's
And
south-
then-
south side of 70th.
Yes, and then
yeah.
there have been discussions about the other piece of this corridor that we've been talking about, where the Columbus Avenue bid may get involved in some of the activity, but that's too early to
Sort of
tell.
falls through the cracks of the two.
Exactly.
I just thought, because I walked my daughter was gymnastics that way, there is on 70th Street, there is a large, city bike dock.
Yes.
So I don't know if it could be extended further, not for city bike, but
Driveway.
for,
There's a driveway for
On
1
that side
Sherman.
of- Yeah,
well, on the other
Sure.
side, like
Yeah.
starting
Oh, where
after,
the-
just so that, I was just thinking, so like, all the bikes are in one place, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
That's
That would
2-hour
seem-
metered parking for drivers, not,
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
on the corner by the fruit stand.
no, on the south
yeah.
side of 70th
The
Street.
on-
the
the
Cafe-
north side.
Near Cafe Luxembourg.
Yeah. so basically
Yeah,
across
across
from
from Cafe
Cafe and
Luxembourg.
that area.
That's 2-hour
then
metered
you have
car
the-
park.
Well, that would be in the sort of like more efficient location.
Sure.
Piece of our
Yeah.
resolution. So I think we have this resolution on the table. I'd like to ask for
Yes.
votes of support. All those in
Okay.
favor? Okay.
Can I raise my hand?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Opposed? Oh, no, 11, sorry, Carey, you're in favor, okay, 11. Opposed? No. Abstaining? Anyone? Nobody's asked us for a waiver, so I think this is the full committee.
It is the full committee.
Okay, so it passes 11 to 0 to 0 to 0. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you. so
All
much.
right, thank you, everyone.
This
is
will
a
go to the
good
full
first step.
board,
In January.
in
In
January.
January.
Thanks for your time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so now
Okay.
we're going to move on to,
Item 5, request and proposed resolution to increase equity in no standing spots for Manhattan CB7 schools.
okay, so this is, I think, Alex, your resolution. I just wanted to bring up one item beforehand. Apparently the YEL committee has brought this before their committee before where it failed.
We succeeded and it got passed by the full board.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'm getting a note
Why
from
are
the
we
committee
doing
chair.
Why is it here?
We're talking about the same.
This is the,
Same,
the joint
yeah,
resolution, right?
the resolution
Yeah.
that was sent to us is dated 2023.
And it passed.
And it passed, so why are we doing
Wait,
that?
but this, no, this, but I'm seeing a resolution from June 15, 2023.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
And that, and you, and
the
we said.
same
passed.
resolution.
so there was something that was
Yeah,
being
the vote is
debated
passed
and
unanimously.
okay, so Alex, you looked at this and there was nothing that you had that you wanted put, and Okay.
Like a year ago.
Mhm.
I don't know how it appeared. on
it
this
said
one.
Alex put his free parking for teachers that failed YEL a year and a half ago to
Alex.
the transportation committee
Is
with,
that-
and so he
Is that the
wanted,
one?
is that anything? No?
Can you just,
came from?
Okay, so it was somehow given to us, but we can take it off and remove it from the agenda tonight. We thought this was gonna be a major discussion point.
Good, next.
can I have
Okay. Are you sure? This is, the floor is yours, if there was anything you wanted to present. Okay.
There was a resolution.
In any event, what it does give a bit of a reminder that I forgot about, which is when we have resolutions that do pertain to other issues beyond just transportation, we want to make sure we're involving the other committees and hosting them jointly. So
Yes.
just something that I know as a new committee chair, I want to make sure I'm mindful of, and we'll make sure we stay on top of it. So for those of you who are going to bring resolutions forward, keep us posted. Okay, so we can move on to the next one.
Yes, discussion and proposed resolution on balancing neighborhood interests and NYPD parking needs.
For this one, actually, I think Carey had to go. You want to switch these, Carey, or we do the number 7 first?
Sure, if we
Can we
can.
do number 7 first, actually, Andrew?
We could,
Is it about the street renaming? It is.
Yeah, this is the secondary street renaming.
yes,
And Carey and I had both worked on a version and I love Carey's version, so I think I would use Carey's version.
let's hear it.
Okay,
Okay, I'll share my screen, Carey. You can narrate. So take it away.
So at several of our prior meetings.
Sorry, can I say one? If this was
I
the
have a
link
question too.
Yeah,
in the email, the most recent email.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or-
and so there are
I like
two
the word
versions.
that
There
Carey-
was the initial proposal, and then I had proposed an amendment in the nature
The
of substitute.
CA proposed amendment.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
you, CA.
the one that says, I like the work that Carey has done, let's go with this.
No, that's the AB proposal.
This is
So now we
this.
go over to the one that says CA.
The good thing is I'm gonna share it that way.
Okay,
Update
great,
the
okay.
secondary.
All right, well, let me go to the screen.
Well, I like to look at my own.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Alex, for sharing it.
So the general background to this is, we had been approached several times to weigh in on secondary street renamings. And I think there was a sense among the committee that the criteria that we were using didn't provide sufficiently definite guidance for us really to be in one way or the other. And I think there was a general hesitation to be weighing into the extent that we were. And so part of what I had done was take a look at what other Manhattan community boards had set forward for their guidelines when they were weighing secondary street renamings to see if there was some sense of common threads that we might be able to rely on to help us formulate slightly more definite factors that we could look at. And there were a few things that had stood out. So one of the things was really working with the signature requirement in the notice proposal. Several different community boards had different ways of making it so that people that would actually be affected by a given street renaming would have opportunity to directly weigh in and indicate their support. And right now our requirement is really just 100 signatures, within a couple of blocks. And so part of the proposal here is to change it to at least 60% or not less than 300 signatures, which is a little bit more consistent with some of the things that other community boards had implemented, ideally on the designated block. And part of the requirement is also to include names and addresses and the dates of the signature, so that we can actually verify where these things are, where the people who are signing are. We had also had as part of our requirements for individual honorees some indication that the family itself was on board with this. And so because one of the concerns is making sure that the community had the opportunity to weigh in, thought it made sense to have a requirement to post signs notifying the community in advance of getting the signatures, so that there wasn't going to be petitioning and then flyering and then people show up at the meeting, because that provides an opportunity for it requires that people be really eagle-eyed and invested to show up. So this sequence hopefully gives the community notice and then allows the community to express support. One of the requirements that we had also talked about was making it so that secondary street renamings wouldn't be the initial thing that people would have in mind, but to ask people to actually indicate that they had tried to either secure a plaque or some other commemoration before seeking a secondary street renaming. And so that's what's here. As to the actual requirements of the honoree, one of the things that I had seen in other community boards, Community Board 1 in particular, they had particular requirements for how long an individual to be honored had to be deceased. Theirs was twice as long, 20 years, which seemed a little bit long, but it seemed like a 10-year period at least would ensure that the person who was going to be honored would have a durable legacy that would then really be reflective and deserving of having that secondary street renaming. There's always, in looking at all the requirements, there wasn't a particular way to really formulate the standard in a way that would give us much more concrete guidance, but this seemed to be language that I think was going to be a little bit more key to be helpful for us. So put that in there also. And then the other things were really just more on the administrative side, requiring that applicants submit timely in advance of this committee's meeting so that we have time to review. And also to say that we'd only really do this twice a year. And we can key this to when the city council considers these requests to make sure that our council members are able to hear from the board in a timely way. But it also ensures that our agenda won't be too consumed by this. And so this is the idea, and hopefully this captures some of the things that we were talking about. And happy to hear any thoughts that anybody might have.
Yeah, could I have one?
Yeah,
So I think when I started, I had talked a lot about something that you're gonna bring up, no doubt, Cam, which is about like the signs or distraction to people. I talked with Carey about it. I agree. I think it's like I personally think it's true, but I think it's a distraction to the resolution. I like that Carey made it very fact-based, what other community boards do. And this is gonna raise the bar for who gets a street sign. There will be a significant reduction in street signs because I think that's good. It sets a much higher bar. So I think in the end, this is a better way of going about it. So I like that.
okay, I think we'll go around the table. Ken, I saw your hand first and then Jay, and then Andrew. Sorry.
Well, it's definitely. I mean, as you know, I don't think we should be doing this at all. I think if we're gonna have secondary street name, it should be the city that does it, and then it comes to us, whatever board it's in for approval. But it should be somebody of national or international significance. I overheard Jay sort of saying that before the meeting, and I agree. It's just somebody who's a really great person, and their children love them, and and they were involved in a lot of great causes. And there are just a lot of people like that, and a lot of people on this table could probably have secondary street names named after them. But this is definitely a step in the right direction. I think it will cut down. I'd be in favor of 20 years as opposed to the 10 years. I think that really, if they're still remembered after 20 years, then that's really says something.
Yeah, Ken, I was thinking about the 10 years versus 20 as well, and I was balancing the 10 years versus people of who are still living, who know those people and can carry on the legacy by remembering who is on the street. And if you wait a huge amount of time, I think like, will people even remember what they did?
Who they were.
20, yeah, who they were, 20, like, will there be a whole generation that gets skipped? And then how are you gonna rename the street after somebody who you don't remember all the good stuff that they did? Now, if we're talking about people who are national and international people, maybe that won't happen, but I'm wrestling with the time period as well. Okay, Jay, you were next.
Do I hear 15? Anyway, I was saying that, you know, my feeling is, especially the last few applications that we have, all very fine, nice people, but we need to raise the standard, and I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't know that they necessarily have to be national or international, but a significant contribution to the community, which is, I think, a fair summary of this, is a positive thing. And I would support an increase in the standards.
The musician we just approved for West 86th Street was not only a contributor to this community, but many communities.
Well, that might qualify, but we've had several that are very localized.
Yes.
And nice people and were kind to people, stuff like that.
Howard.
So I think it's a positive.
I think the first requirement would have eliminated virtually every secondary street naming we've done recently.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one that's gonna knock everyone out. And I would go, I would go for 15. I think this should be someone who has a serious legacy. And if no one remembers them after 15 years, I just question that legacy. But the point I'm trying to make is that's the factor in this resolution that's going to knock out all of the potential secondary street namings.
Which one are you referring to?
Number one.
10 years.
10 years.
Okay,
But also remember that the street renamings are only for 10 years, right?
Right.
Well, you know.
No.
What?
No, that
can I ask another
they,
question?
they're valid for 10 years, right?
Very
So-
important.
I understand what's,
Let's
Carey,
let Carey answer
is that not the case?
Right, so in
Okay.
our current guidelines, we say that our endorsement will only be valid for 10 years, after which people would need to reapply. That isn't in any of the other community board guidelines, though, and I don't believe that's a provision of city law, so I don't think that it has any particular teeth. And I also don't think it's particularly desirable, because we
It's
don't
not.
want to have churn in the neighborhood. And if the goal is to partly streamline our consideration of this, we don't necessarily want to be in a position where 10 years after the first applications, we start seeing renewal.
Got it.
So
Okay.
I didn't include it in this, but I
think
Okay,
you're right.
that's a good point.
You're
I
right.
just had another
Go ahead, Jay.
question quickly. How do these requirements mesh or not mesh with the existing law?
And CP7s. Current.
they're slightly tighter than our current requirements. And my understanding is they're consistent, but slightly tighter than the city council's requirements, which I think are fairly broad.
Okay.
Andrew, I think you were next and then Doug.
Yeah, so I still, will abstain from all of these. I just don't think streets should be named after people. And I think the discussion of 10 years versus 15 years versus 20 years is a perfect example why. I mean, I think there could be a, tragic occurrence that has happened in these neighborhoods where after 1 year, it could be more notable to name a street after someone in the community that really had a big impact on the community compared to some international person that's more recognized. I think there's all legitimate debates, and it goes back to one of the many reasons I abstain from all of these. With all that being, so I would say if you're gonna do this, I don't think someone could have had an incredible influence on the community, and after 1 year, it should have been named after them. And then for the next 10 years, you'll remember that person in that event. Whereas if you wait 10 years, it could become less relevant and just not as important, but it was really important at the time. With all that being said, this is so much better than what we currently do. So I think I'd actually probably vote in favor of it, but if it's that I'll continue to abstain on.
So Andrew, after your first statement, you're opposed to Mountain Neck Boulevard, huh?
Yeah.
I don't think, I think,
That's not a secondary, or is it? No, that's,
no,
that's actually a primary.
They made
well,
it
it's like-
primary, yeah.
yeah, or is it
Or
Lennox?
Columbus Avenue.
Yeah.
He's been dead over 500
Well,
years.
Yeah, but that's
But that's the problem,
It's not
that's the
secondary.
primary.
Okay,
So,
I have
so,
a follow-up to Andrew's points, that
Okay.
just to clarify, you're not against naming streets for people, you just don't like secondary street names because it's burdensome, it's confusing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I just think it's
But
a,
the
it's a
primary
street.
street can be named for an individual.
You know, I haven't put that much
That-
thought into
That's
it, but
beyond
if
our
it-
purview in any
if it's
event.
I have no issue, if it's Columbus Avenue, if it's this person Avenue, I don't mind that, I'm just referring to the secondary.
Secondary, okay,
Yeah.
just wanted to understand.
cancel
Sorry, Bill,
Christopher
thank you.
Columbus.
I mean, that's.
No, no.
you know.
That's a bad man, no, okay, so, okay, so
So-
I don't, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this, and I've been vocal before at some of these.
Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard.
There's many, but the, I don't know what problem we're trying to solve for here. So what I'm gonna say is that I don't have a problem with secondary street namings because, and maybe you know, having lost some very close family members and getting older, I like to remember people, and I think it's a beautiful thing that we're doing. Gail Brewer's, you know, the legislation where there's gonna be QR codes or ability to know who these people are or were. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I've said on the record, I think every single street could be a secondary street naming in the whole city of New York. I wouldn't have a problem so I don't know what the problem that we're trying to solve for. I understand that it's valuable real estate. I'm in the real estate business, and you're gonna, you know, commit to a name there. So I know, and to Andrew's point about 10 years, right? What about Cooper stock? I mean, what about people that you want to remember now? I thought our current criteria is a year, the person has to be deceased. So I just, the other thing is on your items 1 through 4, we saying that an applicant must comply with all 4 or any, or,
No, it says or.
oh, it does say or?
Yeah.
And
Two requirements, it's 10 years and then one of the other.
Okay,
The
okay, all
only-
right.
Yeah,
I just wasn't, all right, that's
Yeah.
that's
The
a
others are
little
all-
bit more reasonable. So I just, I feel like it feels hurtful. Sometimes when we have applicants here who are literally crying over their deceased, you know, loved one that they made a case that they had an impact in the neighborhood. Maybe they had an impact within a few blocks because they were the neighborhood person and the people that are in that area want to remember them. Who are we to say no to? Why are we being so stringent? And the other point about this is that how do we figure out that 60%, and we have to go through the census or figure out how many people live in that block and then do the math and say it's got to be 60% or it's got to be 300 signatures. It just seems like so I just feel like there's so many other important things that we should be dealing with, and this seems like a big distraction. I like cleaning up our criteria, but something about this feels hurtful. Thank you.
is there a response from the writers?
I know, I completely understand and empathize with what you're saying, and I think it's a really tough balance to strike because I personally don't know how to assess the applications that come before us, and we have seen some very moving presentations, and I empathize very much with the families of the people that are presenting it, and it feels almost like it's an emotional decision at that point. And it's not necessarily by reference to things that are as objective. And I think that's the part that I struggle with because it's not something, I don't feel that I have the skill set to be able to assess an application in any meaningful way. And that's what I
And I
struggle
would
with.
just remind you of the other example
wanna respond to that.
of the photographer,
Yes,
where
it's
suddenly we're
controversial. Yeah.
deciding,
Yeah.
what were we deciding? So what Carey has done here, I think rather brilliantly, is not try to make these hard decisions, but instead reflected what other community boards have done. So it's just making it similar to other community boards. I
Well-
personally love 15, but whatever, I think we go with Carey's vision, which is to bring us closer to other community boards, I think is a lovely.
And I just want to respond to one thing that you said. First of all, like all applications, we are advisory only. We don't approve, we don't have any authority, right? So even when we say we think a liquor license should be here, or we think a roadway dining should be here, it's not us. And it's the city council member that makes the ultimate decision as to whether or not a secondary street naming. All we're saying is yes. Now, I like what we did with that controversial applicant. We kind of took a no position.
Yeah.
Hey, we've heard from the community. We're taking no position. It's up to you, Sean Abreu. It's up to you, Gail Brewer. So anyway.
And if I could just, I just wanted to add one point to this conversation. I'm wrestling with it too, but I think there is something to be said for, as a community, some of these lesser known names that have done really impactful work that don't get noticed in a geography book or in a history book or in something else. That's why we're a community board. We're supposed to be looking at truly local people who have done local things, right? And so the fame and celebrity of the person, to me, as I think about street renamings, and less important than learning about somebody who I might not otherwise know about, who's done something incredible. I don't know how we identify that in how we're looking at this, but I wish there were a way we could, because to me, that would be the perfect version.
We could say it.
Ken and Jami.
We could set up a CB7 Hall of Fame. Tough criteria to get into that. But I think the answer, my answer to your concerns is, for one thing, secondary street name is being devalued now. I mean, it's basically, we had 4 applications one month. And if you say, you say we have more important things to do. Well, that's what we're doing in this committee a lot, is secondary street names, because they're so devalued and it's so easy to get on the list and apply. And right now, what Carey's done is we're just bringing ourselves into conformance with what other boards are doing. And I think that's important.
How many other boards, Carey, did you examine?
All of the ones in Manhattan that I can find.
All 12?
They didn't all have I think it was 2 or 3 where I couldn't find a stated policy.
Thank you.
Jami was next, I believe.
Thank you for that.
So I have a question. I do think, Doug, in response, and you know much more about this than I do. Because you've been doing this for so much longer than I have, but I do think there are some things for which we are more advisory and other things for which the council really looks to us for guidance. And this may be one of those where, if we say we recommend this person for the secondary street naming, they're unlikely to say, well, we don't agree. I do have a question in relation to that, though, because Doug flagged this, and I think it's a good concern. The 60% seems hard to measure. I'm very comfortable with a 300 signature requirement, because I remember in one of the meetings, and this person slid through anyway, but I remember you asking, because you're you, I see the signatures here, but they're not from the neighborhood, because this person's really famous and you've got a lot of signatures, but they're not from here. And I would be, so that we don't get into sort of our subjective favoritism for a family that's sobbing, or our preference for their music, or our preference for their art or photography. If we just know it's got to be 300 signatures from that corridor, that building, or that, a mile radius, or whatever number, hard and fast number, I'd be very comfortable with that. It's easier for me, just in my lawyerly way. The 60%, I wonder how you would feel about how we're going to quantify that. Have you thought that through?
Well,
and I bet you have.
I think it's a fair point, though, and I think if we just want to say at least 300 signatures, that I think accomplishes all of the aims and is very objective and is something that people can understand. So I would be
with mostly one family
Residents and
townhouses.
businesses all over.
How do we
and we can strike
define,
whichever is greater.
how do we define the scope of where the
low
300?
density block.
Yeah, but isn't
Right.
that
Comes
even
from.
subjective?
It is.
It
Yeah,
is.
I think
Yeah.
less is, I think less than,
Well, the more specific it is, the easier it is to evaluate whether the criteria have been met.
yeah, I think it's tough to do the designated block, because blocks have
Yes,
different
it
numbers.
Could be a
of-
brownstone
yeah.
block
How about that?
or.
People living
Fair
within
point.
Community Board 7
Well,
district.
And
Yeah.
that's the really tricky part. And I think part of the intent was to make sure that it wasn't going to be as broad as the community board as a whole, because then you could get, signatures on 59th Street for a street renaming on 110th. But to really make sure that if it was going to be on, the corner of 96th Street, that, you would get people at, if it's 96th and Columbus, you were gonna get people on either, 96th and on Columbus, or you're gonna get them on 90, right in that
How would
area.
you
But if
feel
it's
about
if
wording
it's a
that?
teacher at a school and the teachers at the school who don't live in the area want to support it,
Well, I think the concern is
their
more,
signatures would not be valid?
I think the concern is more, what about the people in the
Or the
neighborhood? I think that is what we are.
Harry, have you thought about a 3-block radius?
And I think what we have now is a 2-block radius, and
You?
yes,
300 is a lot of
but it's
people.
still a question of what is a block and what is the radius, so I don't know that it really
And
solves
what-
anything.
And the other community boards have left it general, or have they been this specific?
Some have said
Okay,
one block.
I just
and
want to,
residents.
before we go to everyone's questions, is he left already? We had a representative from CB9 who is here. So I was gonna ask him what he got out of, okay, sorry.
He's very new. I don't know if he knows it.
Well, it'd be good to hear.
Yeah, yeah.
But, Jami,
So-
Howard, Andrew.
So Carrie, what if it said, as Andrew proposes, all of CB7, signatures from from the district? But then, but with addresses required,
It's,
Because then-
so it's,
because then we could consider where those addresses are in our evaluation of the application. There's always going to be some degree of subjectivity, but I think Elizabeth's point is very well taken, that, certain blocks are just lower density blocks, and Amsterdam houses high density, and so that creates an unfair variance for the applicants. I'm just throwing out thoughts.
Sure. I think it's probably helpful, especially since we have a 2-block radius already. I think it's probably best to not make it broader than that. If we wanted to bring that language and just put it into this, I think that's certainly workable, but that would be essentially a slight increase from what we have now. We can basically just keep this language that's in the current guidelines and just say, change it to 300 if we wanted.
Howard?
I think this is like a debate on how many angels you could fit on the head of a pin. I have been on this committee for
300.
No. And I don't think there's one secondary street naming which would survive that first requirement that the person be deceased more than 10 years. So in the event that someone comes along, I just think we'll deal with it. It's going to be so infrequent. Again, 10 years, there wasn't one that met that first requirement. So I think we're spending a lot of time on these other requirements that for my entire tenure would have been moved.
Andrew?
So I keep half of my comment, which was, I thank you for putting good work and putting a lot of thought into it.
Yes.
My second part is, I take that back, I can't vote it. This discussion is exactly why I'm opposed to, and what happens, a lot of times just thinking about like, things that we vote on, it's like, mention outdoor dining or liquor license, like, it's only one business that's going to get the liquor license there, or the sidewalk cafe, or if someone comes to Landmark, maybe if there's 2 competing people for a street fair on the same day, but even that's, there's flexibility there. Like, what happens if 2 amazing people come and they want the same block? There's just so many things with me. I don't know why we even have to be in the business of it. If our council member wants to vote on it, like.
But by voting no, you're helping us to see more of these.
Well, I would just say that we should get out of the business, say we don't do this as a community board and.
Is that a
if the city
resolution?
council- And if the
You
city,
making a motion?
and maybe we'll start a trend. Maybe,
Is that a formal I second it.
yeah, yes, it's just that the community board
Plain
7.
vanilla streets.
Community board
You
7
know,
gets
name
out of the
committee.
business of, oh.
no, look,
We have-
I would be fine with it, but I'm not sure that we
I mean, I
want,
don't,
I'm not sure that it's,
Resolution.
that the message we're sending to the community.
yeah, so that's what I was saying,
is-
I don't
Since we
care.
have a resolution on
okay,
the
let me
table.
say-
do you
let me
want
just
to
think.
go over it?
In
I don't care
politics,
about it that much to do a resolution on it, so.
Andrew,
I would- well, you said it.
in
Yeah, I
politics,
was wrong.
in politics, we
I-
would refer to it as bad optics.
Okay, so let's.
Substantively,
Okay, everyone, why don't we-
I wouldn't mind being out of the business.
I don't even care about. the
Carey and
optics.
Alex have
I
done
just
a
don't
lot of
care
work
about
on
the
this,
issue
and I
that
think they
much
deserve a
where-
vote on it.
Yeah, and
60%.
Did you want to?
Oh, I
Carey,
was.
what's the
Everyone,
number of years
Jay.
said?
No, it's
Jay.
definitely not important.
we have,
The law.
Jay,
Jay, the committee member is speaking.
No,
Go ahead,
it's
go
really
ahead.
like-
Tell us.
No, I was gonna say, I don't mind the 60%, because to the point, there's lower and higher density,
Exactly.
and like, that could be a footnote of like how to measure that, and you can use census data, as you mentioned, so. Again, like, and I know we could collect the addresses, but that feels like extra work for us to then map it and see where it is, so. I don't know, yeah, but that's why I said this is not important, because it's like a
It's too much
extra
work.
detail.
I mean, I think about the number of
That's
people
good
who
though,
actually
right?
vote
For
on my
them.
block, even on the Upper West Side, and it's probably not 60% of the people on my, you know, I mean, it is a very high bar to clear.
Carey, you have language in this that says we should only do it twice a year
I like.
prior to the time that the city council takes these up, correct?
I mean, I think that gives people.
So we
notice.
would do it the month before the council takes it up?
I think we would aim to
2
do it
2 months
2
prior?
before.
2 months, so the full board.
Yes.
Again, for the third time, if we had this in place over the last 10 years, we would have had 0 submissions.
Because of the 10-year issue.
Do you know that for certain?
I'm pretty sure.
It's, I can think of a few where
Oh, wait,
they would.
Yeah,
This is for the 10
I,
years.
I'm more thinking of the 300, but it sounds like that's on other boards and requires.
Somebody who does.
Yeah.
Wait, you think so? Or
I-
you?
Cannot be
I
considered
think
10
it's
years
been
from
a
now.
while since I had circulated it.
I mean, somebody.
Do I hear 250?
I think it's time to vote.
Yeah, we vote.
It won't affect yours.
So community board 3 had a
No, it
500
won't.
signature.
Okay.
No, it won't.
Okay, just so that it's not like,
Folks, this
Get-
lady who was terrific a few meetings ago, telling us about one of the folks that we did vote for a secondary street naming for. Just wanted to be here to hear this discussion.
Oh.
and how many years ago did they pass away?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
I think we're ready to vote.
Okay, we have a resolution on
Yes.
the,
What are we
This-
voting on?
we're voting on the resolution as
Changed a bit.
listed on the screen with the changes, add back in the 60%.
I didn't like
Crossed
city.
out the
dash
Hey, guys.
or
Okay.
instantly recognizable.
Say
To your
again,
point.
say again.
Oh, if we wanted to add in the point about that the person should be citywide or nationally or internationally recognized as well.
I personally would not vote for a resolution to have that in there. That doesn't mean that we can't. add
Yeah,
it.
no,
Some of them are real neighborhood specific folks.
yeah, which is
I
fine.
mean, yeah,
Which
they
is
name
fine.
buildings after some of, I mean, I don't know, that's my opinion, but.
Within the district, doesn't have.
You're gonna
be
leave the
national.
60%?
But I think we may want to leave the 60% in for, like. No, I think it's a great point, like that if it's,
I think it's
How
a
do you
lot of
get
legwork.
60%?
And I think it is okay to take it out just for the objectivity of it, and I know we can determine it by reference to census records, but I think being sensitive to. The idea that these are families and individuals who are doing it, we may not want to put them through that trouble.
So you're leaving it at
I
300
think we can leave it
signatures,
at 300.
but for the whole district?
for the whole
And
district.
I think,
Yeah.
oh no, well, within two blocks of the designated blocks, which is what we
Okay, I
have
see it. I see
now.
it.
And I
Yeah.
think for most areas of our community board, we have vastly more than that, so it should be an achievable goal.
Okay,
Okay, so I think
Ready to vote.
one second on the okay,
Second.
let's vote. All those in favor of this new resolution?
it's better than what we have now.
Okay, 1, 2, 3,
I
4,
can't.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Thank
It's a
you,
principal
thank you.
position.
That's all. Yeah.
It's everybody but Andrew.
Okay, so 10.
And I
EBA,
don't really like abstaining either. I just want.
Any opposed?
well, you could still abstain.
I know.
Andrew, you're abstaining?
Yes. I'm
Okay.
abstaining, yes.
So it passes
Okay, so
10 to 0 to 1 to 0.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to our final item, I think, for tonight, which is,
So I had
You're fine.
the NYPD one?
yes, and I think this may have been where the confusion was, that you wanted us to look at
Oh, yeah.
what you had done for YEL, which did
Right,
not
right.
pass the committee, but this is for the PD now, right?
Right,
Or
yeah,
it's
the
a-
YEL one had passed and went and passed in full board, but it wasn't related to anything police, but then Ken was discussing why is it what different than.
Right, so I think the email thread came through as something that related to, so it's just a question of wording, so.
Right, so this had come up a few months ago. Remember, we had some people come talk about the 20th precinct and how there were lots of police, private cars parked, and they were very angry. And in fact, there were wrecked cars that were being not taken to the pound. Remember, the officer came from the 20th and said she was trying to work to make it better. I'm now a member of the auxiliary on the 20th, so I've seen some of this firsthand, what the people will deal with. But yeah, so I wrote this a long time ago. Where basically it says, whereas the, 20th precinct currently doesn't have, the required set aside, number of parking spots required, for police parking, and hence has to use these other streets. CV7 asked that we allocate 200 parking spots for officers near the 20th precinct on 81st, 82nd, 83rd Street, exclusively officers on duty. So, yeah.
Is that a requirement, you're saying?
No, I'm saying that we asked DOT to allocate those spots.
Shouldn't
You
it say
said
for the
something about
exclusive use of
Oh, for the
officers?
exclusive use, yeah.
200 spots for policemen.
Yeah, currently, what they say is that at maximum time, we have 250 people in the 20th precinct.
What about for nurses?
How many are on duty at
keepers,
any
and
given time?
firefighters?
So it totally depends.
Firemen,
And
Sometimes it's like,
children care, senior
sometimes it's
care.
like 40 people, sometimes like 40 officers, but then when it's big time events, like,
Like
Thanksgiving Day
Thanksgiving Day,
parade or
of
Yeah.
course, that's different.
500.
That's once or
Well,
twice a
that,
year.
yeah, that's.
Right, and so right now, to remind everyone, the DOT signs, we have basically, it's part of that one block. That is already set aside to only police officers, but it's not enough.
So why are you in Lower Manhattan?
Can I, oh, I was just.
Al, how many parking spaces, I know we're asking for 200, how many are there now that are designated?
Yeah, so they don't, unfortunately, we don't say, how many, if you look right now, this is the number on the screen. DOT doesn't do it based on like the number of spots.
Right.
Sadly, they do it like based on feet, so you can see like this is the one outside, star only police, right? And so I summed up all of the kind of square footage and then divided by the average length of a car, and it was something like 45 spots currently.
It's enough.
Well, obviously, it's
I
not-
You're
thought
advocating for it.
we wanted to encourage these people to take public
Was that-
transportation.
yeah.
Or bicycles and
Yeah.
stuff.
Have a small parking lot at the,
They do, I think.
No, but that's for the. that's for the
When this
police
first
cars,
came up,
They have mechanical
uh,
gas.
We were all given blocks to look at to see where police were parking. And if any were parking, in an illegal manner, like on the sidewalk, we were told. And I did 82nd and 83rd Street, Columbus, Amsterdam, and I saw no improper police vehicles parked.
But
And I did it more than one day, just in case that was a fluke, and it was not. I did not see any improper use of the parking
But
spaces.
it's not police, it's not RMP, it's not police vehicles, right? It's personal vehicles.
Personal vehicles, that's
Well, they all have the
We got
thing
the
in the
story.
windshield.
we got the story that they were partially on the sidewalk, or they were in a driveway, or all of
The
this.
commanding officer,
lateral.
someone came, she said, right, she said she was really gonna work to
She did
stop
say that.
that and was.
Okay, Andrew,
No, I brought it up last time, I mean, Central Park. I know they have a vision, but like, you have a huge park.
You do.
And if you really needed to allocate. Additional parking, would seem to me that. You do it there, I think there's other
Well,
people like
the Central Park
firefighters.
precinct has a huge parking
Yeah,
area.
so-
You're saying that the off-duty, the on-duty police officers should take their private cars and put them into Central Park?
A lot.
Yeah.
I'm just.
In the parking
There-
lots.
There's a police parking there.
Yeah, but that's for that precinct. We're talking about the 20th precinct.
Also expand.
What about, so is this an issue with the firefighters? that
Well, that's,
And
the fire department is not in the same block, except for
I
the
think these are all
24th
valid
precinct.
points, like to answer a few questions, so Andrew, the question about people parking on the sidewalk is this picture. Which is usually not the this is usually RMPs, like police vehicles, although sometimes it's personal vehicles. It definitely happens a lot. I can use a picture of it. But yeah, again, like I totally agree with you guys. When does it stop? When do we give it to firemen, et cetera? But the statement being made in that series of presentations, which I think still bears that it's, creates all these problems in the adjoining neighborhood.
And
And
we also represent, we're a community board for our community, taking 200 spaces away from our neighbors when parking in our district is crazyville. And people,
And it's about to change.
spend
with
hours a
congestion,
day
right?
looking for a spot. I mean, with all due respect to the police, who I think do a wonderful job. None of them live in this community. And we have, we represent the community. We don't represent the police department or the fire department or the New York City Council or anyone else.
it's complex. We represent all the people who live and work here.
Yeah, they're.
So they definitely work in the community.
Yeah.
And as Gail Brewer was saying, she wants more officers. I would say internally, there is a wrong perception already that they're hated or maligned or something. And part of the feeling that they can't get to work and it's at 3 AM or they're afraid their cars are gonna get messed up, doesn't make it easier to hire in 20th precinct versus other neighborhoods where they do have.
We don't determine where there are some.
And they would be even more susceptible to something,
Right,
you
right,
have
right.
a young.
Actually, if they
Okay.
took the train at 4 o'clock in the morning, they might help keep the train safe.
Okay, Ken, and then I think
Point.
Jamie.
I'm done. I
Jamie.
think it's crazy.
Okay.
No offense.
Okay.
People who park for free on the street, don't necessarily, they're a very small minority. And I'm not sure it isn't the best use of the curb space.
Well,
I
we're not
think
gonna get into
allowing-
that discussion.
And so they aren't the community. They're a very small sliver of the community.
That's me, I park on the street.
And many
But
people
I-
don't have New York State plates who are parking on the street.
They still live here.
Yes, they do. They're registering their car in other states so they can have a cheaper rate.
Okay, let's let Ken finish his Ken, summarize.
Um,
There'll be another train shortly.
Yeah.
Most people are the sliver of the population.
Maybe.
Speaking of trains, I think maybe we should even table this until congestion pricing.
That's what I was
That's what I
gonna
was,
say.
yeah, I think. this
Because
is-
it's gonna be a whole different ballgame then.
We wanted to put, this
but I
was something we
think
wanted to put on the agenda because we were told that it needed to be on the agenda.
Yeah.
So we have it on the agenda and now we're
Yeah,
saying we want to
congestion pricing is
potentially,
supposed to come on
Okay.
January 5th.
Fifth.
okay, Jamie,
But I think, I mean, I'm of two minds about this. I think that parking for police is, particularly for official vehicles, is a higher use than allowing people to park for free at the curb. But also, one of the main reasons why people drive rather than take mass transit is that they have free parking. If they have free parking,
Right.
that's a huge, incentive.
I see reporters doing it all the time on
Yeah.
66th Street
So
who
I
are
saw-
coming in from other places and the reporters who don't cover the neighborhood and they use the ABC spots all the time. which
I think if
So
we
I-
allow,
So I'm not
Yeah.
sure we should be encouraging that.
right,
And at the very least, I would want to know what is the precinct doing to incentivize their officers to take mass transit. But
yeah.
congestion pricing may answer that question.
It may.
Yeah. Andrew, can you answer whether, so are are police officers and their cars exempt from congestion pricing?
Well, we're not in the.
not their
congestion
personal
zone.
cars, but a police vehicle is.
Would they come in through, okay, got
Not
it. Okay,
personal
sorry about
cars.
that. Jamie.
If we're tabling for congestion pricing, I don't have to ask my question until
Okay.
we return to.
I
the
think it's
discussion.
good. Let's table it for congestion. pricing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Table it.
I just
think the situation could change.
Should change, hopefully for the better.
Hopefully.
So I just-
Table it to
We
July.
just, all right, so we're gonna table this, but the question I have is, we were talking specifically about creating additional parking for police officers, not for their RMP. For those of you who don't know, it's radio patrol cars. We're not talking about, because if a police vehicle at this point can pretty much park anywhere, they're not gonna get a ticket. But was the proposal just for Police officers' personal cars,
Personal
not the
vehicle.
official cars.
Right, the red, and the current red sign is not for police vehicles, it is for,
For
it's
private
for
vehicles.
private personal vehicles for use
Yeah.
of police stations.
Right, it has a placard that shows that they're.
Let me ask this
Thank you.
question. If we were to have passed this, and we may in the future pass this in a different form, whatever, how could we not do this also for the 2-4 precinct?
Well, potentially, yeah.
Well, they pretty much take over 100th Street.
Yeah.
And the
They
fire
do.
department.
What,
is there,
and
too.
what about the fire department?
They have those,
And they have a library.
they have the angled parking spaces on 100th Street, which is different than in the 220 for sure.
And I gotta tell you, the problems with my supers and buildings, you know, they have stuff to. There's so many people. It's just one of those other
Yeah.
issues.
And parking's no more free than the use of the parks or the public schools, et cetera, et cetera. So this business about people parking for free, we pay this, I don't park on the street, but people who do pay the same taxes, whether you use them or you don't
Actually, that's
use them.
not true, Jay. There are so many cars registered in other states that are parking on our streets. They don't pay the same taxes.
But Andrew, to answer your
You
original
want to
point.
ban out-of-state license plates.
If you have residential parking permits, which is a discussion that's gonna be coming,
That I
they will
agree
have to
with
be
you.
New York State plates to get the.
I just want to make a point. As it relates
Yeah.
to the 2-4 precinct or Central Park precinct, I think the reason we're focusing on the 2-0 is because a lot of people from the community came to us. We had a presentation.
Okay.
Squeaky wheels get the grease. If someone, the 2-4 is a very different.
The layout.
Yeah.
If I could just ask, is there, Jessie, is there anyone from the community on the call who may want to address this or is interested in it? Anyone around?
No one's hands is up.
Thanks.
There are still approximately 10 or 11 lawsuits against congestion pricing. None of them seem to be gaining additional traction now. So we will see what happens. Howard asked me at the last meeting, what percentage do I think this will move forward? And I said 65%. The longer these take, I'm gonna raise that.
So congestion pricing will have been in effect for like 5 days before our January meeting, right? Our January
Well,
meeting.
that's hardly enough.
Okay,
time.
so we want to table this until the February meeting.
Unless there's
I
some
think we should
monster
table it
traffic.
for significantly longer.
Okay.
A year.
You guys are okay with that,
year?
or, and we
Yeah.
think the community
In
is
order to
okay?
get a better thing, but.
Okay, great.
If people
Ken, are
ask
you
about
okay
it,
with that?
did we discuss
I know
it?
this
I
was
think we'll
your.
know a lot more by
If they
June.
ask, did we discuss it? We can
We'll
say,
see.
yes, we
Yes.
talked about it,
Okay.
we talked to members.
And Andrew said he walked the streets.
Yeah.
You know, well,
That was a snapshot in time.
I propose a resolution requiring Andrew to walk the streets once a month and come back with them.
I was really surprised. 82nd and 83rd there was nobody parking illegally.
Okay,
Well, it sounded like when she came, and I forget her position, but she seemed to take it.
Yeah, she took it
and said
seriously.
she would-
Deputy Inspector Punsullivan?
Yes,
forget
that's
the
who it
name.
was.
The commanding,
Yeah.
So January 5th is the big day.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to say on that? I'm just curious, because you always
Yeah.
have all the knowledge.
I will certainly be in touch with everybody if any of the lawsuits delay that January 5th start date. But as of this moment, it is still January 5th.
I think it'll be in the news. If it's-
I'm
So-
sure it will.
before we wrap up, I just, we'll open it up to if there's any new business, but right now for the January agenda, we have Ken, your guest speaker coming, right?
Yes,
And a discussion about that item, and
What
then,
item?
and Howard's item.
yeah,
Which
Yeah.
is, will take 5 minutes. I can't imagine anyone in favor of flexible
I
bollards laying
can't
on the
either.
ground.
My sister tripped on the one at second and
so many
79th.
people.
It's,
I've seen
they're
people
all over
fall.
they're down all over the
so we'll
place.
make sure that gets noticed, and you're gonna work on drafting, or at least
Yeah.
drafting a resolution. Ken, do you want to speak briefly about what your guest speaker is coming to talk about in the resolution?
Well, the resolution is about situations where a driver is making a left turn against traffic and having, when they make that motion, that movement, that pedestrians who are crossing have a protected walk signal. In other words, the drivers can't cross against illegally crossing, can't turn across illegally crossing pedestrian.
Ken, isn't that every two-way avenue?
Basically, it is. It's not Columbus or Amsterdam.
Except for Columbus or Amsterdam, it's every other avenue.
It is.
When you make a left turn, you go and you cross an oncoming
Yeah.
lane.
It's every other avenue except Columbus and Amsterdam on the
Yeah.
west side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
but, like Central Park West, for instance, it's already the case, you can't make a left turn on Central Park West because you have.
You go into the, unless you wanna go into the park, except for a couple of.
If it's northbound, a left turn will take you into the side streets.
So the expert is from Sam Schwartz, one
Yeah,
of Sam Schwartz.
Sam Schwartz Company, yeah.
Yeah.
Part of his empire.
Yep.
Doug?
Well, the only, it's really not new business. I mean, I'm just pointing out the fact that jaywalking has been legalized essentially in New York. And
Yes, it has.
decriminal, but it's not, it's sort of funny to me because I understand that one of the reasons was that it was not being implemented, and when it was being implemented unfairly to people of black and brown that were 72% of the summonses, which probably were very few of them. But I do, I had an experience where I was riding a rental car and someone literally darted in front of me and I stopped short and the person said, "It's legal now." And I said, "Are you out of your mind? Like, the laws of physics haven't been suspended, just, you know."
You should have hit them.
Well,
You should have said it,
just don't.
Doug, you should have said it's still deadly and zoomed off.
I
Should have hit him and said, it's an accident.
Right.
Well, we have everyone here, just, those are the two items for January. We have, again, the ongoing discussions about 70th to 72nd, which probably won't be on January's agenda, but may come up in the first quarter. If there's anything else, let us know. We'll keep you apprised. I know that for tomorrow night for BCI, there are a few outdoor dining applications. So if any of you are interested, go to the
Yeah,
meeting tomorrow night.
tomorrow
It's on
night.
the, it's
A
on
lot
the
of them.
website for that. Anything else? Otherwise,
I have
we'll
a comment.
for Ira.
Yeah.
This is Ira Gershon, sorry.
Yeah,
Hello.
thank you. I heard Roberta Semer mention curb cuts,
Mhm.
and I was at the reimagining Fifth Avenue, you were
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And they have an interesting design on for Fifth, that they're planning on continuous sidewalks along the whole stretch. And it's rather than curb cuts, I would like you all to think about continuous sidewalks. Or as there's sometimes called raised crosswalks. Because they do many good things. And they also slow traffic down. So you'd be killing a lot of stones.
Are
Plus
you
the
talking
curb-
about the new Fifth Avenue?
Yes,
Yes,
the
okay.
future of the.
That is going to be really, really bad for city buses. They are going to be so
be
slowed down that you have locals, limiteds, and express
Because
buses
it's only one
using
bus
Fifth.
lane.
One bus lane,
Yeah.
and
It's
how they're
very
gonna
much-
get from that lane over
yeah.
to the stop and back again. This was not thought out well.
A work in progress. We'll
Yeah.
see where it goes. The mayor just gave $150 million towards some of it. So that's gonna be an interesting project, not in our district, but surely will
Not
be
in our
affecting
district.
it.
It will
Yeah.
affect everybody.
Okay, I have a motion, I guess, motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank